Hi friends! Welcome back to our virtual writing lessons. I hope that yesterday's lesson helped you get started with a story and maybe gave you a few ideas of some things that you could write about. Today you might choose to write about the same story and continue that, or you might choose to start writing about a different one of your ideas that you had. So you're going to have a lot of choice, and you'll be able to use some of the choices in today's lesson to decide how you want to continue. So let's get started. All right, I did learn that even when I'm presenting the slideshow, you can see me, so I'm going to try not to make weird faces or anything like that. Today's lesson is lesson number 2, planning out your characters. Here are a few things that you'll need today. Either your notebook and pencil, or your fiction writing document on the Google Classroom. Again, if you choose to write on your notebook with your pencil, please make sure you upload a picture of what you wrote so that I can comment and give you some feedback. You also need to be in a place where you can hear this video lesson without interruptions, and you will need a story idea from your brainstorming list, whether it was yesterday's story that you started or a different one that you'd like to start today. Again, if at any time you need to pause the video to catch up, to write something down, or if you need to rewind it a little bit so that you can just hear something again that I say, feel free to pause or do anything you need at any time. All right, today I'd like to teach you how writers get to know their characters. So you have already come up with a few story ideas. You've already started writing about one. Now we stop. Instead of continuing to write and just writing anything that comes to mind, what we really want to do is pause and get to know our characters. There are 3 main ways that I'd like to teach you how to do that. You don't have to do all 3, but you'll get to choose which one, maybe 2, would work best for you. So the first way is to chart your character's traits, and I'll show you this with my story, Sydney the Adventure Dog. When you chart your character's traits, you start to think and write about what they're like on the outside, where everyone can see what they're like, and on the inside, where people might not know what they're thinking or feeling inside, or what some of their motivations are in their heart. The second way we can get to know our characters is by mapping out everything you can think about them. I'll show you a character map that I did for Sydney, and here are a few ideas of things that you could map about your character. I did not do every single one of these things for Sydney. I just did a few that popped out to me, and you could even map out some traits about your character that are not even on this list. So I'll give you a second to look at that and read over it, and you'll get to see a little bit more detail when I show you my example. All right, and then the third way we get to know our characters is by creating a timeline of their most important events in their life. So I didn't do this for Sydney because my story, I know, is going to be just about one moment in his life, one adventure that he has, or maybe a couple adventures. But for a dog character, it didn't really make sense to me to map out his most important events in his life. If you're doing a human character, or even another character that you think is a little bit more complex or in-depth, you might create a timeline of the things that shaped them and made them who they are today. If you have extra questions on that, let me know. I'd be glad to chat with you and help you out. So let's exit our slideshow. It is linked to the daily assignment slideshow if you'd like to take a look at it. It's a short slideshow today. And we're going to go into the writing document. Number 2 here in our writing document is characters, and I listed a few that I think I want to feature in my story. So Sydney is obviously the main character. His best friend Indy is in the story, and of course me, he calls me Ma. So Ma is in the story. There's a few other characters that I might put in, but I might not. Lola is one of them. Shar, my cat, and Auntie Jen is a friend that we go on hikes with a lot. But here's the thing. It's not going to be a really long story. It's not going to be like a full chapter book, so it'll be a short chapter book. I don't want to complicate it with too many characters. 3 is probably a good number. 2 to 4 would be okay if you're looking for a suggestion on that. All right, let's do number 1, charting my character's traits. You can do this with me, or you can watch and then do it on your own, whichever you prefer. I'm actually going to go up here to Insert Table, and I'm going to do a 2-column table. I'm just going to do 4 blocks of it. So the first column will be Sydney, outside. And some things that if someone were to look at Sydney, and I'm making some of this up in my head, I'm exaggerating a little because it's fiction, but I'm basing it on the real Sydney. You can totally make this up if you have made up characters or fantasy characters. This is where you get to know your character and be creative with it and make some stuff up. Use your imagination. Mine is going to be pretty realistic, but that's just my example. So on the outside, Sydney is, let's see, I wrote some notes down so I wouldn't forget what to say. Oh, he's energetic, he is goofy, and he is happy. Everyone who sees, oh, and he's nice. Everyone who sees Sydney says, oh, what a good dog. He's so happy. He's so nice. He's so sweet. That's what people see on the outside when they see Sydney, okay? Oh, and if you remember how to get these little bulleted notes, you follow my mouse, you go up here and you click this button. You can even choose different patterns that you want, okay? So now this is a little bit trickier because when we get to know our characters on the inside, on what's really in their heart, that's when we start to bring them to life, okay? So Sydney inside, and I'm going to use my bulleted notes here. Okay, on the inside, in my story, I really think that there are times when Sydney is confused. And I'm not sure how that's going to develop in my story yet, but you know how sometimes your dog will stop and look at you and then go like this? Yeah, I think sometimes he's really confused and he'll stop and look and say, what's going on? So he'll be sometimes on the inside a little bit confused. I think sometimes on the inside, really in his heart, he is a little worried. A lot of times he runs up the trail and then runs back to me like he wants to check on me and make sure that I'm okay. And then sometimes if he sees or hears something in the distance, he'll stop and look and he'll give a little growl just to say, hey, I'm here. What are you? What's going on? What's happening? So sometimes he's a little bit worried, and I'm going to write more about that in my story. He also, I know, is very protective. He doesn't stray too far from me, and he checks back in to make sure that I'm okay. He's also protective about the some of his toys and like bones that he finds on the trail. He doesn't want anyone else to get them. So this is just a really quick example of how you can chart your character's traits inside and out. And then the second strategy that we learned was to map out everything you can think about your character. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you'll know it as soon as I do my little magic trick here. Character map, abracadabra, poof. Yes, it worked. I mapped out Sydney using the list from this lesson, this presentation. Again, I did not use every single one of these things. I just looked at a few that stuck out to me, and I'm learning all about Sydney, even thinking about some things about him that I didn't normally think about before. So Sydney will say things like, I like my friends, I like to run, I like to smell odd smells. He has treasures like bones and finding dead things on the trail. He has some special places that he likes. He's always really happy when he gets to go out in the yard or the woods. He's always really content on the couch. I think some of his worries are that Indy will steal his bone. Indy's his friend, but they like to have that kind of like friendly rivalry, you know? Or that I will get lost. This is the funniest part. His movement, when he runs, he goes so fast, but then he stops all of a sudden, turns to sniff something, and his tail whips around because his back legs were still going faster than his front legs. And then he sniffs, and then he runs off again. His relatives are me, his sister, my cat Char, his Auntie Jen, and his Uncle Kirk, that's my brother. And I might not put all those in the story, but at least in my character map, I'm getting to know Sydney a little more. His best friends are Indy and Lola. And there's a ton more that I could put on here, but you can make your character, if you choose a character map, you can make it as big or as small. I would say try to put at least 5 things on your character map. Try to get at least 3 things in each category for your, what do we call it? Your chart for your character traits. Again, I didn't do a timeline for Sydney, but if you want to do one and you need help getting started, let me know. And once you get to know your character, I want you to use one of these strategies to get to know your character. You can do 2 if you want. At least do 1, and then write for 15 minutes. If you choose to map out a character from the same story that you wrote yesterday, keep writing that story. If you choose to map out a character from a new story from your brainstorming list, map it out and then start writing that story, okay? I just did 1 character. If you feel like you really want to do another character too, that's fine. I did my main character. So you're getting to know your character with 1 strategy and you're writing for 15 minutes. Happy writing, everyone.